Good evening, everyone. My name is Charlie Kratovil, and I want to start by thanking the committee for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I'll be fairly brief. Just so you know a little about me, I came here to Brunswick to go to Rutgers, and fell in love with the place. I took some planning courses when I was an undergrad, didn't major in it, I'm not an expert, but I had the good fortune of working at a great nonprofit organization after I got out of school called the Citizens Campaign. And there I learned how to make a constructive proposal to the government and how to do research to make that proposal one that has a chance of succeeding and improving quality of life in your community. I also learned their approach is called the no blame approach. So I'm not here today to blame anybody for the current situation. I'm here to share my vision of how things could be and share with you some of my findings of my research. I've been spending a lot of time deeply investigating the situation with mass transportation here in New Brunswick. I'm sure I'm talking to an audience. I don't have to explain why mass transportation is important to you, all the benefits for the planet and people's health, etc., taking cars off the road, easing the parking demand, etc. You guys already know this stuff, so I'm just going to walk you through these slides here and tell you a little bit about the city I love so much. We are one of only a few towns in New Jersey that can say we have 2 New Jersey Transit train stations. We have, of course, the downtown at Jersey Avenue. We've got several miles of bike lanes. In my time here, I've noticed the bicycle amenities improved greatly over that time. I've also kept up on the taxi companies we have here, 5 licensed taxi companies with more than 40 licenses. And they're, of course, facing issues like so many taxi companies are these days. And we're really fortunate that we have a very walkable community, so we're able to, you can see on this map, it's from walkscore.com. It's just kind of a heat map of places that have a lot of bars, restaurants, and cafes that are walking distance. So you can see some areas are very walkable, have a lot of options, other areas not so much. Now, I've looked into the transit experience that people are having and just listed a few things that make the experience better. High quality transit experience is one where you've got a safe, clean place to wait for the bus to arrive. That's a very important thing and really was the first issue that I started getting involved on here to try to get more bus shelters established. It's also important that you have a comfortable vehicle that's the right temperature, you get a smooth ride, and ideally there's friendly people that you're going to be interacting with, the driver and the passengers. Very important, the frequency and the reliability of the service also. And making it easy to understand is one thing that I think we have room for improvement. Simple routes with simple names. Those things can go a long way towards improving the accessibility of transit to folks who might not want to take the time to do research to find out what options they have. And so another to that end, online and mobile phone tools to time your trip right. When I was at Rutgers, we were all fortunate to have a system where you could go online and it would tell you exactly how many minutes until the next bus was going to show up at a given stop. It still exists today. In fact, now you can see they have the signs right at the bus stops as well. They have a mobile app as well. They're actually transitioning to new software, but we'll get to that. And what makes a great bus? Well, these days it's an electric bus for a variety of reasons. I'll just briefly summarize. 0 emissions, that's the number one. And for that reason, it's healthier for the riders, the drivers, and everybody who has to live in the community where these buses are cruising around. But it also, in the long run, saves money. The average electric bus costs about $300,000 more than a non-electric bus, but they are less expensive to maintain, and though you do need to pay for the electricity, it's much cheaper than paying for diesel fuel or other types of fuel. So the future is electric buses, and I hope that here in Middlesex County we'll see more of those in the future. So if you move to the next page, you'll just see sort of, the first is a success story, just right around the corner from here outside the Wellness Plaza. This was my first bus shelter that I was able to convince the powers that be to establish. And this is a great example of what the no blame approach can accomplish. I said, hey, you've got a supermarket here. It's got a bus that drives right near it. We could connect more people to this supermarket if we just have a place for them to wait for the bus. And as a matter of fact, people use that shelter to wait for cabs, wait for people to pick them up, and of course the Rutgers shuttle bus that does stop by. And it's ultimately improved people's New Brunswick experience. So they come to New Brunswick, and instead of having to just kind of wait on the corner with no shelter, now they have something to shelter them from the elements. The next slide, you see the site of a future bus shelter. This has been, an application has been filed by the city with NJ Transit. It's my understanding the county engineer's office is currently in the process of approving it. You can see somebody there sitting on the kind of ledge of the building at 410 George Street, and some others who are waiting for a bus that stops right very near the New Brunswick train station. This is a prime location for a bus shelter, and it's one that, again, through the no blame approach and constructive proposals, we've been able to move along the process, and hopefully soon there'll be a shelter there. In the last two slides, you can see a couple places that could use shelters. One of them is right there on the other side of Albany Street, the train station. You can see the Coach USA bus stopping there. And then the other is Livingston Avenue, where you can see somebody sitting on a newspaper box waiting for the bus. Now, there are how many bus systems in New Brunswick? It's hard to keep track because the system is so fragmented. There are so many different options with differing attributes that I can't really give you a straight answer for how many there are, and I'm not going to go into all of them because that would take forever. So I'm not going to really get into the NJ Transit buses, but we have a number of routes that all stop at the train station. We also have the dial ride service that the city runs, which is curb-to-curb service for elderly, disabled, and low-income residents of New Brunswick. Somerset County runs two routes that stop at the train station here, the Dash and the Cat 1R. And it's also, of course, the private buses. Coach USA can take you to New York City and other destinations around the state of New Jersey. Our bus has recently started stopping here, and they've got buses that will take you to Washington, D.C. And then some of the institutions here have their own systems that they put together themselves, so medical facilities, staffing agencies, and even I've noticed sometimes real estate developers will, put together their own little shuttle to take people to and from train stations around the county. So the Rutgers bus system, you might not know this, but it is free of charge to anyone. You don't need to show an ID, you don't need to be a Rutgers student. It is the largest university bus system in the United States of America. They've got 9 routes and 4 different shuttles. The big catch is that it's only really running a lot of buses when Rutgers is in session. On weekends and during the spring break, summer break, winter break, it's a huge drop-off and there's a lot less service available. But when Rutgers is in session, there's really some phenomenal free bus service that connects part of New Brunswick to another part of New Brunswick, and we'll get to that just a bit. Some of those buses run 20 hours a day or more, and I learned in my research that Rutgers has a contractor, First Transit, that provides the buses and the drivers, and they provide them at a flat rate, which is very interesting. So regardless of the size of the bus, the day of the week, time of the day, how many miles it's driving, there's a flat rate per hour that Rutgers is paying their contractor. And so we don't have to talk about all the buses, but there are 2 routes that we will talk about that are serving New Brunswick, the double E and the F, and then also the 2 New Brunswick shuttle routes that are most useful to the non-Rutgers community here in New Brunswick. There's also the MCAT system, which is a really great offering the county has. They presently have 6 shuttle routes. We heard today one of them is going to be eliminated, but they have a $1 suggested donation. They also do a lot of curb-to-curb service for people who are over age 60. Something you make reservation for. And so there are two MCAT buses that make stops in New Brunswick. The M1 takes you all the way down to Jamesburg by the exit 8A area. Then the M5 is actually the most popular of the MCAT routes. It goes down Jersey Avenue into North Brunswick in the industrial area there, and also runs around the second ward here in New Brunswick. The city pays a little less than $130,000, or about 40% of the cost, and it's a combination of two different routes that used to be independent. The M4 and the M5 were merged a while ago. So, moving on, the double E and the F routes are some of the most robust transportation options available here in New Brunswick. And again, a lot of people don't know that they're free and don't know exactly where they go because the names don't tell you, the double E and the F. The double E actually goes through downtown New Brunswick via George Street. The F hits pretty much all the same stops on campus, but it takes 318 and kind of bypasses downtown. Now, you probably can't see because it's tiny, but you can see that the double E starts at 6 a.m., goes all the way till 2:36 in the morning on weekdays. So that is more than 20 hours a day. At its peak, the buses are coming every 9 minutes. So it's a really impressive offering, especially considering it's free. But again, it's only when Rutgers is in session, or only on weekdays. The service drops off dramatically. So I have a few recommendations here for what could be changed to open up other areas of New Brunswick to these options. The bus kind of passes by some areas where if a stop were added, it could improve the quality of life and options for people in those areas. So I won't get into all the specifics, but you can read for yourself there. And then we can talk about the New Brunswick shuttle, which is a shuttle that is near and dear to my heart. I used to ride it when I was a student. I've actually worked with the Rutgers administration, the Department of Transportation Services, to make changes to it. And unfortunately, some of those changes have made the route a little more confusing. Basically ended up making a compromise where now there's two different routes, one that goes clockwise, one that goes counterclockwise, and it's to the end user is a little more confusing than it needs to be. But I first got involved because I realized that more people would ride it if there were more shelters along the route. It's unique in that folks can flag the bus down in most areas. You just sort of wave to it, pulls over, you get on, and you can kind of use it on demand. But I learned when I was a student that most of my peers had no idea that this was a bus that they could ride, let alone flag down when they see it. Most people saw it's shorter than the rest of the Rutgers buses, so they assumed it was for some special purpose, not one that was open to them. And I realized if there were only a few more shelters along the route, people would see the option, they would see that they could wait at the shelter, there would be information at the shelter, and people could ultimately make better use of it and get more people riding the shuttle. It's only a 4-mile long route, so they run two of the buses, one in one direction, one in the other direction. And I have some proposals here that could, instead of having one be clockwise and one counterclockwise, you could have one that's a tighter loop and more of an express route that would circulate more quickly, and one that could go just a little bit off of that route, still be under 5 miles, which is still smaller than the double E and most of these other routes we're talking about, but could, again, open up some of these areas to having the transit option through this Rutgers system. Now, when we get to the M5, I do want to talk about the M5. It's the result of that combination of the M4 and the M5. And it has a name that is somewhat confusing, especially considering there's the New Brunswick shuttle that Rutgers runs. Well, now this is called the M5 Jersey Avenue Brunswick Commercial Avenue Shuttle. So it's a lot of words, and it does tell you a little bit about where it goes, but it's kind of confusing, and in my experience it was not as swift as it could be. It takes 2 hours to ride the whole route, and it stops twice at some places, so it creates this confusing situation where if you're getting on the M5 at the New Brunswick train station, you have to ask, well, which M5 are you? Are you going this way, or are you going that way? And it's not it's not a crystal clear situation. So I am concerned about that. And you can see, when the routes were combined, that the ridership declined. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And again, I'm not here to blame anyone. I just think that there's room for improvement here. And one easy way to improve it would be to add that functionality that the Rutgers buses have, where you can tell when the next bus is coming. So some of these, like the M5, you might have to wait more than a half hour for the bus. But if there was a way to look up when it was coming, you could time your approach so that you don't spend that much time having to actually wait at a bus stop. Also, of course, same with the Brunswick shuttle, having more shelters along the route would probably help get more people riding it. And so I would also recommend splitting it back up and having a separate shuttle for Circle, sending more to New Brunswick, and have the M5 just focus on the Jersey Avenue area, where most riders are coming from. And again, both of those routes you could, again, have alternatives where you have a tighter express route, and one that's maybe a more lengthier route that might go deeper into North Brunswick, whereas the express routes can stay here in New Brunswick. So, in conclusion, there's a few key problems with the current systems. There's fragmentation between them that causes disconnects. The fares, the hours, the days of operation, frequency of service vary widely. There's no one place to get all the info. In fact, the City of New Brunswick's website is the best place I've found. But even still, most of the information is only available in English, and even then, sometimes it's out of date or just not accurate. So many folks are also simply unaware of the existence of these services, especially the fact that Rutgers offers free buses. And then shelters are only present in a few places around New Brunswick, particularly on the Rutgers campus. Outside of the Rutgers campus, there's not that many. I've been working to change that. Now, the M5 and New Brunswick shuttle routes are probably due for some analysis and simplification of them. I think that with these principles in mind, they could be made much more effective and ultimately get more people using them, which is what we all want. And the cool thing about having all these great opportunities in our city is that with just a little bit of effort and bringing together the partners, it could be promoted as a system, as a holistic system where the different routes connect to one another. And to the end user, there could be a brand that puts New Brunswick at the center, makes New Brunswick the hub. Because we are the hub city, we are the county seat, we are the area that's sort of epicenter of population and transportation. And putting together just some basic uniform standards, centralizing the marketing, and ultimately increasing the ridership, we can allow New Brunswick to grow by easing the parking and traffic demand and getting more people using mass transit. We in some ways could be, we have some catching up to do when it comes to other cities, and I think that New Brunswick deserves nothing but the best. So we should have reliable, frequent service that meets high standards of quality. We should have the technology to be able to see when these buses are coming, track them in real time using our phones, using the web. And we should also have safe shelters that are well lit and give people a place to wait for the bus. I know at Rutgers they also double as a public safety benefit because they have the blue light emergency phone system where you can press a button and immediately get in contact with authorities. So this is what a perfect system would look like. Now, how do we get there? Well, the nice thing about Rutgers having this flexible contract is that we can piggyback on the Rutgers contract. If Rutgers is willing to add service at certain times that it doesn't exist, or add a route into a certain place that doesn't exist, the funding could come from any source. It could come from the city, it could come from the county, it could come from other townships, it could come from other entities, it could come from Domino's Pizza. But at the end of the day, Rutgers could take advantage of the fact that they have this flexible contract with a flat rate. They're getting probably the best price in the country because they're running one of the biggest systems in the country, so their rate is something like 78 and change per hour. And that's one way that we could make that happen. We could also do it the old-fashioned way, buy some buses, hire some drivers, and launch a bus system that would strategically supplement the existing offerings of the county, of NJ Transit, of Rutgers. And whichever way we do it, we need to make sure that the routes that are offered are united, unified in a stable and reliable system that people can come to count on and come to ultimately spread the word to others about. Say, yeah, I had a good experience. There's a Brunswick bus system. You should go there. You don't need to have a car. You can ride the bus. And so on the last page, I've fleshed out this vision just a little bit. Again, this is just a vision. This is not a proposal that's before any government body today. But I would like to see a system that puts New Brunswick at the center. I would like to see a system that has common sense naming. So instead of calling it the double E and the F, we can call it the Scarlet Shuttle. It connects the campuses, and visitors from New Brunswick wouldn't have to learn what the double E is and where it goes, but they would know the Scarlet Shuttle will take you to Rutgers, take you to both campuses, and that just kind of naturally is already set up in a kind of express and local system where the F is the express and it bypasses downtown, the double E makes all the stops. So the Scarlet Shuttle is just waiting for an name change. That's all we need to do for that. And again, the drop-off in service on the weekends and the summertime could be augmented with a partnership. So I'd like to see that. We'd also hopefully simplify the other routes. We talked about the New Brunswick Shuttle, the splitting of the M5 and a separate shuttle for the second ward of New Brunswick, and hopefully they work to get a shuttle to connect New Brunswick and Highland Park. I know there's a lot of demand for that. But all these things should be color-coded. You could have the routes named after colors, and you could even stick a big magnet on the side of the bus that's that color so that people can see that's the blue bus, it's the blue route, and they know where the blue route goes. It'd be a lot simpler than calling them the M5 and the NBQS and the double E. And ultimately would make it easier for folks to connect with these offerings. So I did break down how this could be done in a 1 year, year one cost being $2.2 million, split between entities that have not agreed to do that yet, but this is again just a vision. There's lots of ways to pay for it. You can have shared service partners that sometimes like the developers that are building these apartment buildings, it helps them to rent those apartment buildings if they can tell people that there's a free bus that's stopping out front every so often. And perhaps they can be motivated to be partners, as well as the federal and state government and all the great local folks here who I think really want to help do the right thing. And so the final slide, this is never before seen. I gave you guys an abbreviated version of the presentation I gave back in February to the New Brunswick Traffic Commission, but I have been working on this since then. I think, my dream, my vision would be to have a light rail system here in New Brunswick. It's something that's been talked about for a long time. I think that the research has been done to show that it would be very popular, but let's be honest, it's going to cost billions of dollars, and we would need significant federal investment to make that happen. And it's just, my honest assessment after, years of looking at politics and government, that we're not going to be able to get that investment unless we are making use of what we've got already, making the most of it. So one great way to move this further along would be to take a 6-block area of downtown New Brunswick where we've got a lot of buses flowing already, the double E and the F, but also all those most of those NJ Transit buses use all 6 of these blocks. And we could make that a bus rapid transit strip, where for those 6 blocks it would be only buses and pedestrians allowed. There's obviously a lot of details that would need to be worked out, but this is, again, a vision. I hope it's a vision that that most of you share and you want to move forward. I'm happy to take any questions, but I feel like I might have already gone long enough, so I'll hang out, and if anybody wants to talk to me about this, I'll be here. This is something I'm very passionate about, and I want to thank not only the commissioners, but all of you for paying attention, and also everybody who helped me put this together. I talked to a lot of people who were very gracious with their time and their expertise. So thanks to everyone, and have a wonderful evening, great summer.
Thank you.